In this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, we have Kevin Harlander from First Lite. First Lite is a technical clothing company out of Ketchum, Idaho. I'm going to say that they are in the top tier of technical clothing companies for hunters in the world. And I've been a First Lite fan for a long time. I found their products, as you'll hear in the podcast, a few years ago, and I've been extremely happy with them. But the reason we are going to talk about technical clothes is because I want to try to give our listeners some more options on how to dress for success while they're in the field. If you can go into the field and you can be comfortable and stay longer, then you have better dogs. Because as our old friend Mike Cawley says, the dog that gets hunted the most is going to be the best. And if you can't stay out there because your kit is failing you, because you're cold, because you've got swamp butt, and you don't feel like being in the woods, then how are you going to have those extreme performance hounds? So before I get labeled as a snob or a techno geek here, let me give you some background on this, okay? So my first pair of actual hunting pants was a pair of Vietnam-era BDUs. And I started wearing those when I was probably, 10, 11 years old. They were a small set. And as I grew up and not so much around like I am now, I'm only growing out now. I'm not growing up anymore. But to give you an idea about these tiger stripe pants, as they became shorter, I actually took a pair of blue jeans and added cuffs to the end. So I cut off a pair of blue jeans and added those into the end of the pants so I could keep wearing them. So it's, and then with the Marine Corps, I've paid my dues with clothing and articles of clothing that probably weren't ideal. And what we're going to talk about in this episode is what ideal clothing looks like, how it functions, and then build your kit a little bit at a time. My partner, Steve Fielder, had never worn merino base layers until we went to Navajo Nation this past year. And I think since then, he has been very happy with those. He's worn them on several hunting trips. And so he's found the functionality in that. So take what we're going to talk about here today and figure out what you need. There are several things out there on the market. We're going to bring you First Lite because that's what I wear, and give you the information on what they're doing and how you can fit that into your kit. So a lot of good information here and might open your eyes to how you can improve your game, up your game, and increase your performance while you're in the field. So make sure you check us out. Go to our website at houndsmanxppodcast.com. houndsmanxp.com. I don't even know my own website address. www.houndsmanxp.com. On the front page, there's a green tab that says Support Houndsman XP, and that'll take you right to our Patreon page. We really do appreciate your support. It helps us keep the lights on, helps us pay the bills, helps us keep this podcast rolling out there for you. Don't forget to reach out to us and tell us how we're doing. And something we haven't mentioned in a while, make sure you are going to Apple Podcasts, any podcast app that you're using, and leave us a rating. But if you're using Apple Podcasts, go there and give us a rating, leave us a comment. We really do enjoy your comments and your reviews. So without any further delay, grab a cup of joe, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Houndsman XP podcast, everybody, and we are in the middle of jellyheads and turkey season right now when we're recording this, and I've got a fellow turkey hunter and Rocky Mountain turkey hunter at that. So Kevin Harlander from First Lite, welcome to the Houndsman XP podcast. How you doing today?
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, man. It's great. I'm doing really well. We're surviving sort of the quarantine and getting things accomplished here at First Lite HQ. We're working from home and trying to just make the best of it.
Yeah, what kind of challenges has that proposed on you guys?
Well, first and foremost, we're really lucky to be a direct-to-consumer brand. So we only sell on firstlite.com. So it's been really helpful. We've been able to sort of manage without retailers for the last few years, and we sort of own and house all our own inventory and things like that. So we've been doing pretty good. Fortunately, our warehouse has been able to remain open. They've been, safely working there. And we sort of just pivoted and adapted as things have changed. We've been doing pretty well, and I think we're really, really lucky to have such great customers. Folks are really stoked about what we've got coming out, and it's a good time to be getting some gear as you're at home. And those stimulus checks came through, I think, for a lot of folks, so that's been pretty helpful too. And
I was checking checking my bank account. It's there.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hey,
I love it.
Describe what First Lite is to our listeners that may not know. I mean, this is a Houndsman podcast. I think most people who are semi-aware of things going on in the outdoor world, I hope they understand what First Lite is. But Kevin, tell us what First Lite is and what you guys do there.
Yeah, for sure. So we started about just over a decade ago in the Rocky Mountains. The town's called Ketchum, Idaho. Started by a couple of guys, Kenton Caruth and Scott Robinson, who have lived here for a long time, and they always worked in the winter sports industry. And as merino wool started to sort of emerge as this premier fabric for skiing, biking, climbing, and other recreation, they started wearing that on their fall hunts. It kept them warm in the mornings, cool as the day heated up, and kept them completely odor free, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So Scott and Kenton were wearing basically merino wool, and that's how our company started. We were the first ever company to print camouflage on merino wool. We've always been in the business of trying to solve problems, and for us, we were sort of born from this dilemma of how do you stay concealed but also comfortable. So the short of it is we established ourselves in the Rocky Mountains because of the ability to test apparel and gear here.
Mm-hmm.
Right out our back door, we've got 3 or 4 different mountain ranges that we could be in 5 to 10 minutes from the office. And the history of the company.
Are you rubbing it in? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're incredibly lucky to live where we live and to work where we do. And it's gorgeous, man. And we've got, good elk hunting, good deer hunting, all kinds of things. The nicest part, I think, in the company's history is we've remained sort of small and totally true to who we are. So everybody in our office hunts. Everybody gets 40 days plus a year in the woods every year. It's quite the company, and we're small. We're only 20, 25 people. And that makes things, we work really hard and we also hunt really hard too. So I think, there's nobody, that can tout our experience, when it comes down to why a certain piece of gear works a certain way and where we've tested it is a pretty badass place. So, we're proud of what we've accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a First Lite fan and member of the, what do you call the program? It's not pro staff. It's development.
Yeah, just our research and design.
Yeah, research and design program. I found First Lite because I was looking for a lighter weight wool pant that I could wear in the warmer months of the year. I was wearing Pendleton pants. Wool Malones, and serve me very well, but they're extremely heavy, and you just simply can't wear them when it's above. For me personally, even east, west, it doesn't matter. For me personally, if it's above 20 degrees, I mean, they're not comfortable for me to wear. So I went on. Yeah,
I remember wearing those in a deer stand in Minnesota growing up quite a bit. That's a great pair of pants.
Yeah, they are. And so I went on the hunt looking for these things, and I came across First Lite and the Canabs, merino wool Canab pants, and just kind of started working from there on building a kit out of. I was so impressed with the Kanab pants for comfort and the when I say comfort, I mean not only do they feel like those pants felt like you were wearing pajama pants in the woods, but they were also breathing and keeping your temperatures regulated. And then you guys have built from there. And I mean, there's so many opportunities. I would venture to say, I'm not sure if you could find anybody that's probably worn the new Sawbucks more than I have. I wear them when I'm working. I wear them when I'm hunting. I've just worn them out. I'm almost ready to. I'm not worn them out because they look brand new, but I mean, they're practically glued to me. So I want to talk about all those cool things.
Yeah, you bet. The evolution of our gear, that's something I should mention too, is, we're redoing and, re-envisioning each piece of our gear almost every day. So we're never really satisfied. When something's done, it automatically goes back into the hopper as something that can be, improved upon if we find a failure point. Mm-hmm. And that's how the evolution of a lot of these products come about is, we test them a lot, we wear them a lot, we harness that feedback and make sure that we're able to understand what the shortcomings are. Because, I think if you rest on your laurels, you're never going to be a competitive brand. So, I'm pleased with how we've been able to do that, certainly in the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that the whole reason I had you on here is so that we can talk about how to dress for success.
Sure.
Hound hunting is a sport or an activity that's highly active, and you need the right gear to do it. And I've been in the woods before in gear that wasn't good. I've seen people try to wear walls insulated bibs when it gets below 30 degrees. And by the time they get to a tree, they're soaking wet from head to toe. And
right.
then 20 minutes later, as you're sitting there, around the truck, or you're listening to the next hound race or whatever you're doing, you're freezing to death. And I just want to open some people's eyes and talk about some of these technical pieces and give some people some options on and some ideas of how to up their game. Because if you're comfortable in the field, you stay in the field. And when you stay in the field, you're hunting more. And when you hunt more, you have better hounds. So that's the goal of the podcast today, is to talk about how First Lite's gear will help people accomplish that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we should dive right into it. And I appreciate that intro too, Chris. I think the biggest thing that we try to do is educate people about the power of our products because of, first and foremost, the way it works together in a system. And then secondly, the materials that we use that, ensure comfort both when it's cold, hot, windy, stormy, you name it. So I think the biggest thing to chat about first is, the power of merino wool.
Perfect.
A lot of folks, they associate wool with being super warm in the deer stand or scratchy, itchy things, and that's just simply not true of merino wool. The components of merino wool and the natural fibers that exist in merino wool are naturally odor wicking, or I should say odor resistant,
right?
And moisture wicking. So what it's going to do is, as a base layer, which means you wear it right next to your skin, it's going to do two things. It's going to keep you really cool when it's hot out because it's going to pull that moisture away from your body. It's going to keep you warm when it's cold out because it's naturally insulating and works well with the human temperature. We also use a material called 37.5, which is basically named after the ideal human body temperature in Celsius, degrees Celsius. So that technology allows for the correct breathability, the correct amount of moisture to go away from your body, and it doesn't get absorbed into the fabric. It wicks through. So, when we're talking about base layers, I think it's incredibly important to start with merino wool. That's how we got our start in the industry, and that's sort of the foundation of our brand. So what I like to tell people is get a pair of men's Wick long boxer briefs. Those are all a merino wool product that you wear as like a pair of underwear. get yourself a men's wick hoodie, and a pair of Obsidian merino pants, and you're going to be set for anything that's basically a standard, early season hunt, right? And that's going to be the foundation of your kit. So the Obsidian pants are basically the evolution of those Canab pants that you were talking about earlier.
Right.
They're a merino wool pant. I'll tell you, they're not made to be brush busters, and that's why we created the Sawbucks, right?
Yep.
So the Obsidian pants, though, are going to give you the best acknowledgement and understanding of how merino works, because they breathe incredibly well. And I was doing a little homework before this podcast, and I've sort of built out what I consider to be like a pretty good houndsman kit for guys that are chasing dogs.
Yeah, let's get into that, because First Lite, the whole merino deal. Let's go back to base layer first, because I want to kind of dissect that a little bit, Kevin. I think a lot of people misunderstand the functionality of an effective base layer, or they call them long johns, and the only time you wear them is when it's cold out. And with your wick series, I've got a wick top, and I've got the boxer briefs, like you said. I can wear that thing from the time that I leave the truck in the morning, or I leave camp in the morning, properly layered, and when it's 30 degrees or 20 degrees out, properly layered, and then be able to reduce that down. But even when it's 70 degrees in the afternoon, and I'm wearing that on the outside now as my only layer at 70. So it's an amazing piece that I think a lot of time is misunderstood. So do you have anything to add to that before I ask you about the difference of effectiveness between synthetic and merino?
Sure. So the only thing I would add, on the base layer front is that, you want to make sure that you're getting the correct weight based on sort of the temperature. So we've got everything from, the lightest at the wick level all the way to our furnace, which is basically made for non-active hunting when you're like sitting in a tree, which is kind of our thickest and heaviest merino wool. Mm-hmm. And the important part there, I think to note, is just that the sort of the reality of merino is that no matter how cold or hot it is, you're going to function in each of these layers differently. So I think understanding that, if you're looking for a do-it-all piece, you can't go wrong with wick, because that's going to be the lightest. It's also going to keep you, relatively warm when it's chilly. So we can go through that kit later, but let's get into sort of the technical aspects of that gear.
Yeah, can you tell us the difference real quick? And maybe it won't be quick, but why are some people manufacturing or producing synthetic versus merino, and why did First Lite go with merino instead of a synthetic as a base layer?
I think there's really two reasons. One, when you're talking about, if you think about things in terms of natural ability, so the reason a merino wool sheep can regulate temperature is because those fibers are naturally grown versus synthetic, which is, developed in a lab. Mm-hmm. You got to understand too that with First Lite is we use a blend of technology. So there's the ability to, implement 37.5, that technology that basically allows for the correct amount of transporting moisture from the base layers to the outside of the garment. That's woven into the actual merino wool. Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing there is if you want to both have temperature regulation, ideal odor elimination, and ideal, warm when it's cold and cold when it's warm ability, you can only get that through merino wool. Synthetic material is going to stink if it's 100% synthetic after a few days. Mm-hmm. And you can see that too, like compared to, a merino base layer versus a nylon pair of pants. After 3 or 4 days in the woods, the nylon pair of pants is going to retain a little bit more odor than your wick top.
Right.
that's not to say that synthetic materials are bad, because there's, I wear our 37.5 4-way stretch corrugate guide pants almost every hunt. But my expectations of that garment are quite a bit different. The merino wool top, the reason we use it is because you can dunk that thing in a creek after a really hot hunt, and here in archery season, elk season, and hang it in a tree. It's going to dry incredibly fast, and it's going to not have any stink at all. And that's really the significant difference between synthetic and merino, is that merino has all three elements of effectiveness versus synthetic just being, light and moisture wicking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one thing that I found is it sounds gross because we're not programmed this way. A lot of times if you're not in the backcountry hunting, you mean you didn't change your underwear today? That's terrible. So but you find yourself with like your kiln and your merino base layers. I get several days out of those before it's like, hey, I need to wash this. So you actually extend the life of the garment by not laundering it as well.
Yeah, that's right. And we tell a lot of people that the best way to sort of wash merino wool is to just dunk it in a water source and let it naturally air. Hang dry, just because like you said, the longest I've worn our merino boxers has been about 10 days with one pair, and that includes some just creek washing in the woods. But those, the ability of that garment to not stink is just really incredible. And I think it's sort of a long way of answering your question, what's the difference between merino and synthetic? Merino has this incredible ability as a natural fiber to both last longer, stink less, and wick moisture better.
Yeah, that's it right there. The power of that moisture wicking. And I was a big synthetic base layer guy for a number of years, and when I found the First Lite merino base layers, that pretty much came to an end. And I can tell you that all merinos are not created equal, because I've tried to bargain shop merino on Amazon and different places, and I get this package and I open it and I'm like, what in the world is this? And I've got a Lano quarter zip that I've had for years, and I don't know many years I've had it, but I can tell you that that's probably the second most worn piece that I have. I wear it all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. The last thing I'll add just about merino too is I'm kind of looking over my notes. The other thing too that we talk about often in the woods, and maybe not so important for the hound hunting side, but there's no sound with merino wool. It's incredibly silent. Yeah. It's also not shiny. So wool sort of absorbs light and has no UV reflection. So I imagine a lot of your guys probably do some deer hunting and other things as well, and that's important. And the last thing I'll say, this comparatively to synthetic fabrics, I just got to say, like, the stink factor is just incredibly noticeable compared to merino. And it's just, I know we keep hammering that, but I think it's really important for people to know, especially guys that are running 10 miles after dogs, on whether it's on snowmobiles or on snowshoes or on foot. I know there's no shortage of movement, and it's probably pretty cold most of the year. And you're going to sweat when you run, for sure. And I think there's no better choice than merino wool, for sure.
And to sum it up, there's a lot of time spent in trucks with heaters on in between those races looking for tracks. And I don't want to smell you. So wear merino.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You're out there in these remote cabins and, camps that we set up, and we're running the mountains and doing different things. So it may be a few days between the showers, and just be considerate and remember that you're going to be riding with other people in the truck. So
yeah, that's exactly right. I got to tell you, I still hunt with a lot of guys that wear other companies' clothing and spend their time doing other things. And it reminds me, I used to be a firefighter and a wildland firefighter in college, and those are some of the stinkiest guys ever. And once merino wool started becoming a little more available, my job became a little easier because I didn't have to smell all my buddies all day long.
Right. Yep. Oh. Yeah. Hey, let's get into I want to follow your outline. Sounds like you're prepared to talk about a good kit for houndsmen. And
Yep, for sure.
And I'll kind of put in what I've done too, and maybe we can come up with something that people can wrap their minds around and start shopping.
Yeah, of course, man. I think that sounds great. From my experience, I haven't hunted with hounds a lot in my hunting career. It was never really legal where I was, unfortunately, growing up. And then Oregon, unfortunately, I don't know when they outlawed hunting with dogs, but it was quite a few years ago. And it's pretty interesting how, the predator numbers have just skyrocketed too in parts of Oregon. So
right.
I just wanted to lead with that. However, I think what's important to know about what I do understand about how you guys hunt is it's very versatile. So maybe one day you're on the snowmobile chasing lion tracks, and the next you're hunting bears and like Clay Newcomb down in Northwest Arkansas, and there's not a lick of snow to be found, so it's warm. So I think the biggest thing is when we talk about how to build up this kit, you want to talk about versatility because there's such a wide range of environments and situations you'll be in. So I think what I'll do is I'll just start from from feet to head.
Yeah.
And I'll just go through a couple of products that I think would be pretty helpful. So when we're starting at the bottom, obviously you want to start with a good pair of boots. We work with a couple different companies, but I'll spare the details there. People can figure out what their feet need the best. The pair of pants that I really want to tell people about is those men's sawbuck brush pants. Those are pants I know you've worn, Chris, and I've worn, and I'm really appreciative of their ability to both be durable but also breathable. They're basically based off of our Corrugate Guide pant, which is a 37.5 nylon 4-way stretch pant. They have reinforced fronts and backs. It looks just like an upland bird hunting pant that you might see the old timers wearing, like the canvas style upland pants.
Right.
But the nice part about this is, I imagine from my experience, cougars and bears and coons and whatever you're chasing with, hounds don't like to necessarily take the nice road right to that tree. They like to go through some thick stuff. So these pants are going to be able to not only be breathable and helpful in hiking, but they're going to be really durable and they're going to be very long lasting. And also they come in two different solid colors and two camo patterns. So if people need to be versatile in what they're trying to accomplish as far as being seen, there's the opportunity to be in camouflage too. And then as you move up the body, I think we mentioned before.
Can I jump in on sawbucks real quick?
Yeah, of course, man.
Okay, so one of the reasons that I really enjoy the Corrugate, I enjoy the guide pant, and I also I'm in love with the sawbucks.
Yeah.
The reason is because as we get older, we become less flexible. And
sure.
These pants, I've said it before on this podcast, but these pants fit like pajama pants. They are so comfortable, and they are. And you mentioned versatility. If a guy's trying to, I don't have all the money in the world, so
right.
I can't afford to have my pants over here that I'm going to wear. So you can get these in camo. I've deer hunted in my sawbuck pants, and they're virtually silent.
Right.
While protecting with that abrasion material on the front of the legs and around the cuffs. So you can literally bust through the back here. We've got multiple rows, and I've waded through all of it, and
yep.
I'm gonna have to take a picture of my sawbucks and post it so people know what I'm talking about. But these things have been worn extensively, and there's not a chink in them yet. They're still
right.
looking good.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good intel because it is pretty amazing how tough they are, while also being pretty comfy. I wear those things pretty often. I wore them mule deer hunting all last year. I just really appreciate them. So I think,
I do too.
moving up the body, I think it's really crucial for guys to either get the men's wick long boxer brief, which is going to be sort of your next to skin layer around your crotch and your butt. You sweat a lot in that region. So these are going to be really helpful in wicking that moisture away, especially as you're running through the woods. So those are really helpful. And then if it's really cold, I really like our men's wick boot top long johns. So
Yeah.
I'll just explain those a little bit because that's kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people, and it was new to me. What it is basically a long john that goes just below your knee, but above the top of the bottom of your calf. So it basically fits right to the top of your boot. It is a long john though, so if you need a little bit of insulation, if it's going to be chilly, it's a great option. The nice part is you don't have this overhang between your long john and your boot. So there's not that thickness. So it's really nice to be able to hike in. And then the other thing I'll mention too is we are coming out with zip off long johns in a few months here. And that's going to be a game changer, especially as guys maybe start their day on a snowmobile or on a quad or something like that and are ending up on their feet. It's something that you can zip off and you don't have to take your boots off to do so. So it's really quick, really efficient, keeps you warm when you're cold, and you can take them off if it's too hot.
Yeah.
So those are going to be awesome, and I'll make sure you guys get a pair to try out over there and see how they work for you.
One of the things that we have dealt with, and I dealt with this in the Marine Corps, and Marines spend a lot of time on the road on their feet, and and so the dreaded swampy butt that you get, and I'm telling you, you will save money on anti-monkey butt powder if you switch to merino boxer shorts. You just don't have it. You're not galded. And that's becomes very uncomfortable, especially for houndsmen. If you're trying to wear cotton, I've seen all kinds of train wrecks. I mean, I've seen guys take a cotton tube sock and then try to put a wool sock over it. And I've seen guys, wearing cotton briefs underneath merino long johns or merino base layer. It's like, why are you doing this? You're trapping that
I think
moisture.
It comes down to education.
Yeah, you're creating problems. It's because Mom told me I had to wear underwear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think that there is a really interesting thing about, and I'll go back to the nice part about merino wool, is a little goes a long way. So you don't have to necessarily, because of its natural ability to insulate and also keep you cool, you don't have to wear 6 different layers of cotton just to stay warm and then take it all off when it's soaking wet from sweat. It's going to function as a piece that you don't have to take off all day. And that's what we'll try to do here too today, Chris, is chat through some of the educational pieces and just let folks know, like in a very, introductory way. Like I don't want to try to talk too much about the science of it all. I'd like to just, see what works for both you guys on the ground and myself on the ground, and use that anecdotal evidence. It's kind of just a way to inform people that this is a really cool material. As we're moving up the body, the one that I really like the most, and continue to be in this wick sort of pattern, or this wick component, basically we have 3 levels of wool and they go in weights. So wick is going to be the lightest. It's our 150 weight. That wick garment is going to be your best bet for your next to skin base layer for all times of the season until it gets really cold and you're stationary. But for guys that are moving, and it sounds like most houndsmen are moving, and correct me if I'm wrong,
you're right.
At least part of the day, that ability to move through the country without like over sweating or under sweat or being too cold, this is going to be your mainstay. And you know what? It's a pretty cheap garment for how technical it is. You can get it for $80 on our website. And this thing is going to perform for years to come. It's really awesome. And then this is something that I almost wear every day. I'm in some First Lite gear almost every day. And the wick long sleeve crew is the best. The thing I like about having no hood on this long sleeve crew is that as you add layers out, I like to only have like maybe 1-2 hoods instead of 3 if I'm if I'm wearing a jacket. So this layers really nice. It's just that crew piece. And I think that guys would be pretty impressed with this garment and just its ability, like we said earlier, to wear it 4, 5, 6, 7 days in a row. Maybe you're chasing tracks and you're not going to make it home for a few days, and this is going to be a good piece for those guys.
Right.
So that's that wick long sleeve crew. You can find that at firstlite.com.
Yep. I've got the wick. It's even got technical panels. That is the one with the technical panels under the arms and different stuff like that. So
Yeah, so basically, you know, if you sort of look at a side angle on that, it's basically what we did is the front and the back and the sleeves of the garment are all 150 gram arrow wool construction, and that features that 37.5 active particle technology, and that allows that moisture to wick away from the body while also utilizing wool as that natural odor resistant ability. Now on the side, you've got basically sort of a slimmed down 125 gram airwool mesh panel for extra breathability when it gets hot. And that's really awesome because you can dump heat so quickly through those sides. Because if you think about where heat sort of is retained in your core, it's usually in your chest and underneath your armpits. Like that's why we sweat underneath our armpits. And this garment allows for that moisture to kind of get sucked out of those areas so you stay dry and cool. You know, the wick is just like such a functional piece. It's what I, you know, prefer to get people on right away as a good introductory piece. The nice part about this too is we build our garments with this thing called shooter's cut. So you're going to have a tapered arm that's pretty long. So if you wear a normal large, you're going to have maybe an inch or two extra in the sleeve length. And that allows you to stick your thumbs through the thumb holes and use this as a layering piece when you're trying to get other pieces on too. So you're not going to have sleeves binding up. And, you know, that's why our stuff from base layer all the way to outerwear works in such a nice functional capability. So that's just a few little features on that piece. I hate to get too technical with it because it can get kind of boring, but okay. I am pretty excited about how this stuff all works.
Yeah, and I can attest that I deer hunt in it. I chase hounds in it. You know, you can basically do anything, any sport. I work out in it. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that flexible, that much motion. Range of motion is all there, nothing binding, and if you wear this kit properly, you'd be surprised how, you know, at the extremes that I've worn my kit. And I'll talk about mine in a few minutes, but go ahead and talk about yours.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, as we continue to move up, I think past that point, if we're talking just basic kit for hound hunting, I'm looking at the next piece as being the men's kiln hoodie. So this is going to be our next weight up. You're looking at a 250 gram Merino X fabric. So basically what it does is it beefs up from the wick just a little bit. So it's got some improved structure and some resistance to tear and bagging. This is what all the hardcore guys at our company, which is the majority of our crew, this is a piece that never leaves their path ever. When you're getting chilly, this thing's going to keep you warm. I just used it turkey hunting, and I had this on, the wick long sleeve, and my rain jacket, and it was just dumping rain. That was perfect. You can either wear this next to skin when it's chilly, or you can use it as a second layer if it's really cold. It's basically the most versatile piece we make. So that's the Kiln 250 hoodie, men's Kiln hoodie. Yeah. And this is a little more expensive. It runs about $130, but again, this piece, you know, I bought one of these in 2013 and I still have that piece today. It's one of the first kilns that came out. And it's one of the protos and it's still awesome. You also have a chest pocket on the front left chest. And I'm actually wearing this piece right now in a new ash gray color. And it's just like such a versatile piece. It's something that I really get folks, you know, towards, as soon as they can get into this kit. This is what we shoot them towards. Mm-hmm. You know, and then I'll say the last piece that I think is really crucial if we talk about jackets, we make a very versatile jacket that I think is going to be perfect for sort of the tough conditions that houndsmen hunt in, and as well as sort of the variable conditions, and that's the men's Catalyst soft shell jacket. This is going to be our most quiet layer. It's also a soft shell, so you have the components of breathability, insulation, and the engineered ability to stretch and move. So it's a 2-layer construction that has a fleece liner on the inside. It utilizes that 37.5 fleece lining to optimize your body temperature. but the outside is extremely durable. So it's much like the sawbuck material as far as the pants go. But the nice part about this is you're going to be able to basically run through the woods in this, and also sit on a side by side or a sled and you're rolling through the snow and be pretty warm.
Yep.
It's extremely packable too. You can throw it in a pack when it gets too hot. And the last part I really like about this piece is it's got this DWR coating, which basically allows it to be water resistant. So you're not going to withstand a torrential downpour in this jacket, but if you're hiking and it's drizzling, it's going to keep you dry. And it's just, what I'm trying to do is drive your guys towards really versatile pieces that'll last a long time. And you can talk about some of our puffy coats and some of our more technical, like mountain hunting pieces. But I think for versatility and durability, the Catalyst jacket is a no-brainer. And you're looking at $240 for this jacket, and it's going to last you forever. And we got a great warranty program too. If anything should happen to it, we'll just get you a new one if it breaks down. So,
yep.
And then when we talk about accessories and stuff, so I should say that's the men's Catalyst soft shell jacket. That one's really versatile as well. I like the Shale Touch hybrid gloves. It's a tough glove based on merino wool and goat leather. It's going to be a really versatile pair of gloves that you can use your cell phone with and your GPS. So it's got touch screen compatibility. So if you're looking at tracking dogs with GPS, and I know most guys are doing that now, you don't have to take your gloves off to operate your electronics. It's really awesome. And that mixed with either a merino tag cuff beanie or some sort of hat like that from First Lite, that's going to basically round out your kit as we consider this sort of a minimalist kit. So this is what I would wear if we were going to go hound hunting together. This would be my kit. I'd have my sawbuck pants, my merino boxers, the Wick boxers, a Wick long sleeve, a Kiln hoodie, and a Catalyst jacket, and then Shale Touch hybrid gloves and a merino hat, the merino tag cuff beanie. That's going to be my kit. So you're looking at, anywhere from a spend of, depending on how many layers you want to get, from $400 to $700. You're going to be set up for every hunting season that I can imagine. And you might want to add some other things in there, but certainly a great program. And I think that's what I would recommend for a kit. When we talk about sort of both versatility, durability, and the ability to sort of, sit still or run through the woods, that's going to be the go-to there.
Right. And I've found that my kit is somewhat similar, and I've worn it from Indiana, Ohio, the Midwest, Ohio River Valley, all the way out to the Southwest, up into the Northwest. And so, what I've found is I did find the limits on the sawbuck in the Arizona mountains. When it gets down to 10 degrees, I'm going to reach for my Catalyst pants at that point, and I'm going to be wearing a soft shell instead of those. One thing that I added that is a necessity in snow for lion hunters, especially in cat hunters, is the gator. And gators, even people don't understand gators. I wear them in the East now because for years in my previous life as a conservation officer, we logged miles and miles and miles on foot doing foot patrol. And we would find even wearing Danner boot, which is supposed to be Gore-Tex and everything, what was happening, we walked through grass, and I've literally got pictures or video of me sitting in the back of my truck pouring water out of my boots after doing a foot patrol during early turkey season. You add a gator to that situation, and your boots function properly because you're not getting that drainage down into that boot. You're picking up moisture on your pants, it's wicking down your sock, and now it's running straight into your boots. And I never could figure that out until I added a gator. And that's
a great point.
Yep, that absolutely stopped that nonsense. So
Yeah, you know, when I got at elk hunts in Oregon for a long time and archery elk hunts, and I almost wore those things damn through the whole season just because of that same reason. You know, you start with a dewy morning.
Yeah.
And you're right. So the Brambler Gator from First Lite has a rigid construction, so it's going to sit up above, or excuse me, just below the knee. And it's going to wick that moisture away so that the top end of your boot, which is really the most liable, or I should say, you know, that's where the moisture is going to come in. It just eliminates that pinch point. And I think, you know, for most guys, I imagine that, you know, a lot of the guys out here that are running cats in the wintertime, they're in 2-3 feet of snow at times.
Yep.
So this is just going to allow for you to stay dry. And there's nothing worse than wet feet, man. It just can crush your morale. And I'm sure you know how, you know, wet feet and wet hands and a wet head is like the worst thing ever. So that's a great point. I think those Brambler Gators would be a great addition.
They're awesome too. And I've had other Gators from other high-end companies, and I like my Brambler Gators better. They're better constructed. They fit better. And I've got Gators from other companies that weren't as durable. I mean, that heavy Cordura on the insides of those things for a person that's logging miles is going to last a long time. Yeah, I agree. And I think the last thing I'll say about the Brambler Gators is it is versatile because they're not going to make you retain a lot of heat. So they're breathable enough to where you can wear those in warmer temperatures when it's raining and still be okay. Likewise, it's going to be a really good snow piece. And I imagine most of your guys, you know, can run. You start running dogs for coons and stuff when it's warmer out, and then you're all the way into lion and bear season when it can be a little chillier. So, like I said, what we're trying to do is create sort of a versatile and durable kit, and that's a huge component right there. Yep. You know, probably the only reason I go back to the sawbuck real quick and hitting the limit at 10 degrees there, probably the main reason I switched to Catalyst pants is because I had them. You know, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have to be cold if I don't want to be, you know. And
that's right.
One question I would ask are there any plans of putting hip zips in those Catalyst pants?
You know, we're working on a couple iterations always, you know, and that's the thing I mentioned at the beginning of the hour. So we're talking about, you know,
taking some liberties and putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no problem. You know, I can't really talk about the specific R&D components of what we're trying to accomplish with improvement on our pants, but I will say, you know, our guys in the product division are working hard on answering questions and listening to feedback from our gear testers. And I would say that, you know, from our perspective, we're always looking to improve pants, and hip vents are a certain, especially for houndsmen and people that are, you know, going through a variable weather pattern throughout maybe even just one day. That's certainly a consideration. So it's something we're working on for sure. I do think that in the next few years, you'll start to see improvements on sort of our basic pant line. But yeah, no promises on that quite yet, but you know, we're always working on it for sure.
Oh yeah. I won't put you on the spot anymore, Kevin, but I do have some ideas after we get off the air, and I'll share them. I'll share them with you then.
I like it.
So the first year that I wore all First Lite gear, we were actually in the Swan Valley, just south of Kalispell, and we were in some extreme conditions. We were sub-zero. And I'll just go through and tell you what I wore and give our listeners an idea. So, you know, I was wearing, at the time I did not, I only had midweight merino base layers.
Right.
So that's what I started with. And then on top of that, it was before the sawbuck came out. I was wearing the corrugate guide pants, and I was wearing pack boots, and the way the corrugate guide pants is cut, I mean, it fits nicely inside the pack boot without having to worry about, you know, it's horrible when you're trying to wear a pant inside your boot and you've got that heavy seam or something that's digging it. It always finds that ankle bone and starts rubbing right there. And exactly. The corrugate is cut in a way that it doesn't do that. So we're talking 5 degrees and below is the weather that I was wearing this kit in, and a lot of snow. and then I move up the body. I'm wearing the Kiln hoodie, and then on top of that, I had the Klamath hoodie.
Yep, great piece.
Yep, and I love that piece.
And you're probably familiar with that from the Marine Corps too. That grid fleece, I think, is utilized in the military pretty extensively. Am I wrong there?
No, that's right. Of course, Marines usually don't get it. That goes
Yep.
to the Army and the Air Force.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, seriously, yeah, we knew about grid fleece, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that technology right there and why you chose grid fleece.
Yeah, of course. So I think the biggest thing is when you move away from the body, right, you don't necessarily need merino wool on sort of your second or third layer. The interesting part about grid fleece is that it's warm, right? I mean, it's a synthetic material, but also utilizes a little bit of antibacterial treatment to manage that odor. So the nice thing is we took like the classic grid fleece, which is an exceptional weight to warmth to weight ratio. So basically you're trying to solve two problems. One, you're trying to solve reducing that wind chill factor as an external piece.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is you're trying to understand and trying to maintain functionality within your kits. You're not going to sweat that thing out if you're walking. And fleece has that great ability. So the grid fleece pattern is like a waffle pattern, if folks are familiar with that. And that allows you to stay warm when it's chilly. So a great piece, and it's got that ergonomic hood. So basically it fits right over your head, so you can see out the side of your vision is basically enhanced by that articulated fit. And the other thing about fleece that's cool is it's stretchy. So it fits really well as a third layer or a second layer because you can put it over something and you're not going to be bound up in the armpits or the elbow or the wrist. So yeah, another great piece. And that's something I wear a lot, especially when I'm sitting still. I wear that in the deer stand quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and the beautiful piece, the beautiful thing about that Klamath hoodie matched with a quarter zip base layer is as I'm walking into a tree and you're in those conditions, even 400 yards away from the trail, with that snow, that's waist deep. We were buried in snow in the Swan. Now you're exerting a lot of energy, and I can dump heat. I mean, I'm literally unzipping that thing, and it says quarter zip, but that thing comes it comes below your rib cage right there on your stomach, really. So, you can get rid of a lot of heat right there, stay comfortable, stay regulated. You get to the tree, and you can start, you can start zipping stuff back up and retaining that. But it reduces the moisture you're putting into your garments when you can do stuff like that. But it's also a comfort thing for you. So I'm wearing the Klamath.
That's right. And
then I wear an Uncompahgre vest on top of that.
Yeah.
And I'm good to go. Even in it, I was very comfortable, very functional, not overheated. I could be in better shape, but that has nothing to do with my clothes. And so that was my kit. Since that time, I've modified a few things. I've added the sawbucks, and I've added the Catalyst soft shell pieces too.
Yeah,
and I only wear those. Wear those when it gets cold. The jacket is super comfortable. It's stretchy, so I can literally put that jacket on over the kit that I just described, and when I start walking, because I wear a Houndsman vest that has a radio on my GPS tracker. It's so stretchy that I can literally put it on over that, all of that stuff while I'm riding in the side by side or the truck, and then when I get ready to go, I just take it off, stuff it in my pack, and if I need it while I'm on the trail, I've got it with me. But I can rock and roll, and it's a great piece.
Yeah, that's awesome. The only thing I would add to that conversation is we're coming out with a Catalyst vest as well. So that piece, I've turned into sort of I never was a vest guy before, but I've turned into a vest guy just because of the ability to keep your core warm, but your arms, cool. So that's a great point with that uncompounded vest. That's another great piece, and it allows you to be able to hike and still be warm.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would add,
it's a little bit fragile. I mean, it's not a briar buster, so it's a little bit
right.
fragile. But when you're wearing a Houndsman vest over top of it that's made out of Cordura nylon, I haven't snagged it.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yep.
Yeah, and the last thing I would add too is for the guys that are riding snowmobiles in the snow and going a ways and following dogs or whatever it may be in the wintertime, we make this thing called the men's Chamberlain down jacket. And this is probably, and in fact I know it is, it's basically the warmest and the most down fill of any down jacket on the market today in the hunting world. It's a little more expensive, but basically it weighs 25 ounces, but it's got 800 fill down power. So that thing is going to be the warmest jacket you will put on in the industry. And it keeps you incredibly comfortable when you're going long distances without walking. We use this thing as a glassing jacket when it's super cold on ridge tops in the mountains. But I've also used it on snowmobiles and in side-by-sides when that wind is a factor. It's just going to keep you warm and comfortable. I'd say this is sort of like an extra piece if guys are looking at spending a lot of time in those cold conditions you're previously mentioning. I think it's just a great jacket. So that'd be the only thing I would add. But other than that, that kit sounds great.
Yep, it has served me well, and so anything else we missed? What we missed, Kevin?
I think the only thing I would say is if we talk about like socks and things on your feet, we make this sock called the Mercury Cruise sock. That's a great padded sock for a lot of hiking, and it's a merino wool construction, so it'll keep it dry. But other than that, I think we pretty much nailed it. The one thing I would add, just in as a sort of the last half of a pitch, so to speak, is that I understand, and we understand at First Lite, that folks are making a pretty big investment, and I understand that it's a lot of money to talk about. The difference is, a lot of people, we talk about this in elk hunting, a lot of guys kill big elk in blue jeans and flannels every year. That's no joke, and it's a reality. And I'm sure the same goes for houndsmen. I'm sure people are a lot tougher than I, and they can wear Carhartts and do the thing and be just fine. What we try to tell folks, and what the sort of the come to First Lite moment is that if you can do that, why not be a little more comfortable and sort of understand that, the reason we make these products are to solve a problem and to keep you in the woods a little bit longer. And to be comfortable doing that is a game changer. I've worn everything from other competitive brands to Walmart camo when I was a kid. Right. And I understand that, when you're a kid, you're just a little more naive to what it just kind of sucks. And that's just the normal thing.
We wore bread sacks on our feet, for crying out loud.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, as you become a little bit more aware and you're spending a lot of time in the woods, the comfortability of our products really kind of shine through, when you're spending that extra day in the woods or an extra couple hours. And that's where guys are going to be able to kill more cats or be able to tree more bears. And I think that's the difference, is we try to make products to allow you to stay outside longer and be comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
So
I can relate this story real quick. This past year in West Virginia, we ended up doing a 9-miler on a bear. We were actually walking dogs. Dogs hit a track, bear hunting. The guy I was with was wearing a lot of cotton. He was wearing the plastic briar-proof clothes. I'm in my First Lite kit. I've got a picture of it. It was the Sawbuck Klamath with the base layers, and I'm cruising along, and this guy is he's younger than I am, and he's in pretty good shape, and he lives in those mountains. But yet I was able to stay with him, not only stay with him, but also my kit outperformed his, because he was wringing wet. He was miserable. He couldn't wait to get to a truck somewhere. So but there's a lot of houndsmen out there that are just ultra tough too. I mean, these are tough men that are going to hunt in bib overalls, cotton bib overalls, until they put them in the ground or they have to hang up their lead strap. And I'm just not that tough, and I want to give people. I've found a better way where I can be more comfortable, be more flexible. I can be in the game longer because I'm not miserable, and that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think that, I understand that it's a big ask. I understand that we're talking, more money than people have spent on gear in a long time. But the thing is, like, you're spending money on good dog feed and good technology to follow your dogs and good conditions to keep your dogs healthy. And I think that the same should go for the hunter. I think if the dogs are able to do a lot more with a lot less, and I think if humans can keep up and get the joy out of hunting, I think that's just a win-win. And yeah, we're gonna have to do some hound hunting together, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'd love it. We'll be if they ever get this all the travel bans or whatever we're doing here lifted, as far as being able to move around a little bit, it'd be great. But
man.
I'm looking for. I always look for First Lite to come out with the next latest and greatest, and you guys never seem to disappoint. I'll go back to that sock thing real quick, and
Sure.
being a Marine, one thing that I learned, as many miles as you put on your feet, you've got to take care of them. And I see guys do things like wear cotton socks and invest in a pair of merino socks, because when you wear cotton, it traps that moisture against your foot, and that's what causes you to get blisters. A merino sock, I've never, ever gotten a blister, and I'm talking in jungle boots on pavement and, 30, 40 mile. You do a 20-mile road march, and I almost said 30 and 40 mile, and people are going to call me out on that, but I have done 20s. And you just don't get the blisters that you get when it's when you're wearing cotton. So this is a Houndsman XP, and the XP stands for Extreme Performance. So we're trying to bring you material that ups your game so you can be extreme performance in every aspect of your game here. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate it. And I think, the last thing I would add is that, protecting your hands and feet is crucial. The way I think about it, if you're an extreme performer, you're basically an athlete, right?
Yep.
And I think protecting your hands and your feet is crucial, because you want to be able to keep up and make sure that you're doing the best to keep those dogs happy and to keep yourself happy and tree more bears and cougars and coons and whatever it is you're hunting. I think it's it goes hand in hand. So yeah, I appreciate the time today. And
you bet.
Just an awesome format. So
I appreciate your time. We have a saying around here, the way we close out every one of these podcasts, and so it comes from a West Virginia bear hunter. This is a tough guy, and my partner Steve Fielder knows this guy. He spends days in the woods at a time. He'll have people drop him off and pick him up down the mountain somewhere. But it all came about with a sheep killing bear, and they turned the dogs loose, and some of the dogs went one way, another dogs went the other way. And John looked at him. They were questioning his dog, and they said, "Boys, you follow your hounds and I'll follow mine."